So I struggle with what to talk about, and I heard a long time ago, if you give a message from your head, knowledge, you can touch another person's head, give them knowledge. Now they have information. Or you can give a talk from your heart, and you can touch another person's heart, which is nice too. But if you give a message from a changed life, you can change other people's lives. And that's what I've always aspired to do, is to not focus on other people, but focus on how I can grow as a person and develop, and then share what I've learned that helped me. Hey, this helped me. And so I'm always using my intuition to try to be led towards ways of growing spiritually and maturing. And about 10 weeks ago, I started getting these feeds on my Facebook of this therapist that I somehow got on her feed, and she started talking about a different type of therapy that I'd never heard before. And she said that she had tried everything for herself and nothing worked. And so she tried this new therapy, and something inside me just said, this is it. There's something here. You gotta go check this out. So I've been doing workshops with her, and one of the workshops she talked about this book, and I have a diagram. I'm going to talk about this book, and hold on a second. So how many people still have their cell phone on? I'm just kidding you. What I want you to do is, if you want to write it, like you're in trouble, like this is church, God's going to get you. If you want to put in your phone the name of this book, but I ordered 10 copies, and it was supposed to come yesterday, and it didn't. What I'm doing is I'm donating. I haven't told Terry this yet, but I'm donating them to the church. And if you give a donation to the church, it's a signed copy by the author, 10 copies. I've never read a book that has so changed me. I've been looking. I'm like, I knew I've suffered my whole life knowing something's just not right. And I didn't know what it was. I could never put my finger on it. And I got clues and I got some insight here and there, but I never could really put my finger on it. And this book, this man has figured it out. He wrote it 10 years ago, and he built on other therapists' work. It wasn't like he came up with it overnight. He kind of fine-tuned other people's, going back to Jung, and different, he talked about in the book the series of people that have fine-tuned it. And what he's figured out is that each one of us has a dysfunctional pattern that's running in the background in our subconscious. And we kind of know it. We see signs of us doing stuff. We're like, why did I do that? I don't know. Why did I have that thought? I don't know. And it's like these patterns are from trauma that we've all experienced in our lives, going back to being in the womb and trauma in the womb. And it's like, once you understand it, he then talks about how to heal yourself and how to cure this trauma and heal the trauma, which I'm like, great. I don't want to be running a pattern, I want to be authentic. I want to live in the present moment and be me, not some pattern that I, was brainwashed growing up, or from trauma, that I had when I was little. And Aaron did this wonderful diagram for me. and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but my hope is that you will get the book, because I've gone through it twice, and he said you really need to study the book about 3 times, and I'm hoping the church will pick it up as somehow a book study, or I could do workshops, I don't know. But it's something that will change your life. And one of the clues is grounding. How awesome was that meditation Aaron did? Did you guys, don't you feel like amazing right now if you actually did it? That was a grounding meditation. And he said, that's how you get out of pattern. When you know your patterns and you feel yourself getting out of pattern or getting in pattern, ground yourself. Get back in the moment. Get out of your head. Get in your body. And it's how you cure anxiety. It's how you really, if you think of all the bad mistakes you've ever made your whole life, it was probably because you weren't grounded at the moment you made that choice or did that thing. Because when you're really present, like, things are good, like, you know? And I, being a psychic medium, grounding, you know, is so important. And I know that, you know, this is going to help some people here. So the first picture, you'll see a woman, and there's like a line going up away from her, out of her head.
Can we bring that down?
Can I bring that down?
Yeah, sure, I'll help you.
You're gonna help me? Or how are we gonna do this?
I said I can't see over.
Oh, you can't, sorry about that. You can just hold it there. No, I'm kidding. And her energy's just leaving her, period, just gone. And this is called the leaving pattern. That's what it's called. It's when you just are not in your body. And it's great for doing mediumship. Not too great for living. And about 10 years ago, I did a full trance workshop weekend. It was a weekend, and I came back and I was so not grounded, I couldn't even think straight. I couldn't operate in the 3D world because I just left and I didn't know how to get back. And I even asked the man there who was doing the workshop, he was a famous medium, and I said, what about grounding? And he goes, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay, don't worry about it. And I was trying to hug trees, but it wasn't working for me. And the leaving pattern is really a trauma from when you're a fetus, in a baby in your mom's womb up to 6 months. So, like, my mom did not want a 3rd child. I'm the 3rd child in our family. And so I was an unwanted pregnancy. So when he talks about that when you come into the fetus at a certain age, and then you feel all this, like, non-love, and you're coming from heaven, you're like, no, I don't want to be here. Get me home. Beat me out of here. And so you actually leave your body, and you do this back and forth until you have to be in the body and be born. And this causes you, whenever you're distressed, whenever now as an adult, you'll know if you have this pattern, if anytime something gets stressful, anything gets you rattled a little bit, do you leave? Do you check out? Do you just start daydreaming or think of something else, or just, and then you don't deal with the situation. That's your way of dealing. You just leave. And that was the only option you had at that young age. You couldn't fight. You didn't have any self-defense mechanisms. You couldn't think. You just knew this was not good and you wanted out. And so that's the first pattern. And then the second pattern, you'll see 2 people there, and one is putting their energy into another person. And this is called the merging pattern. And in this pattern, you have needs that are not getting met, but you're still very young. This is like from age, birth to like 1.5, and you project your needs onto your caretaker, and then you try to take care of those needs. So you totally disown your needs, and you try to help your mom, which is, I don't know why we would pick that pattern, but you'll notice this in yourself as an adult if you're a rescuer. If you see somebody who's in pain and you want to help them, regardless of whether it's good for you. And you just, like 10 years ago, when I totally was checked out of my body, I was walking through Walmart and I was going up to people going, do you believe in miracles? And if they said yes, I give them a $100 bill and walk away. I'm like, I was not dealing with reality. But like I was in the oneness of consciousness, but I wasn't in my body. I wasn't dealing with my own responsibilities and my own needs. And so as a psychic, like I'm really good at psyching, like I can read your energy. And part of this was a survival strategy as a child. If things were chaotic at home, being able to read the energy kind of, you knew how to behave. You could try to, is mom in a good mood, bad mood, what's going on? And this can also be caused by breastfeeding problems. And my mom had an infection, so she had to bottle feed me, and I ended up being allergic to milk. And so she put me on goat's milk, and she said I hated it. So the pattern went like this. I'm hungry. I fuss up like babies do when they're hungry. Mom puts this bottle in my mouth. Something bad happens. I don't want this. And so I'm going to dissociate my needs and try to not be happy. And so that's the merging pattern. So those are two, I think, if you're a psychic medium, I think you can look at those two as things to look at. But all of this has to do with energy. And I'm going to read a quote from the book that it's like, he sums everything up so amazing. I wish I could just read the whole book to you. But he says that your pattern will come from what you give attention to and energy to. So he gives the example of every person is living like with TV screens all around you. And the screens are filtering and showing you to pay attention to things based on your pattern. And so if you run into, you think you're seeing life objectively, but you're not. You're seeing it through your pattern, through your trauma. And if you run into people that have the same pattern that you have, you'll agree on just about everything. You'll be like, yeah, this is the way life is. Because they see it the same way, the same lens. And it reinforces the pattern because you're like, yeah, this is the way you're supposed to think. And that can be good for camaraderie, but it doesn't get you out of pattern. And much of the human suffering is not necessary. It's created by unhealthy patterns of feelings and acting that helped us survive when we had trauma as children, but then they get stuck in your body. And this new therapist I'm working with, she does what's called bottom-up therapy versus top-down. Top-down is when you talk about your problems, or talk about the issues, you talk. And that's helpful to understand your issues. But what she says, don't talk about your problems. Feel what is going on inside your body. In other words, ground. Feel what's trapped. Feel the trauma that's trapped in your body. And then let it out. So we have sessions where we scream and yell and have things we beat on and get to that core rage, because he talked about in the book that the leaving pattern, not being wanted as a child, is like the greatest pain you can experience. And that's why for me, rejection, anytime, I've experienced rejection as an adult, it's just like, oh God, that's so painful. And I try to avoid that. And that's why it's so healing to come to this church, because you're also accepting and loving. It's just amazing. And it's just not the family I grew up in. And so he says that you have this major rage. The leaving pattern has this rage from you're born with. And like 30 years ago, I asked her, I'm like, what is my problem? She said, you were born with rage. And I'm like, how is that even possible? And I did a bunch of past life regressions, thinking maybe it's unresolved from a past life. Like why would I be born with anger? Like, how's that happen? He talks about it in the book, and he said, that's part of it. So I was able to go 2 weeks ago and scream and yell and tap into that rage. I felt it. And working with a therapist, was able to let it out. And it's been amazing not having that. I feel so much better. But that's bottom-up therapy, and it's just a whole different way of doing it. And you don't necessarily have to work with a therapist. You can, go out in the forest by yourself, and you can yell and scream and let it out. But if you think you don't have anger, I would say look at that, because you might. And it is something to let go of. It could be from a very young age, and it's trauma. Let's see here. What's the next picture? I can't see it. It's the stick figure. Oh, thanks. Right? You're so helpful there. Thank you.
Enduring.
Like this, all in the center.
Pointing in.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a person who stuffs. This is a stuffer. So they learned when they were around 2 or 3 that life is really hard, and you can't fight, you can't do anything, you can't escape, you can't leave. Mergers will try to befriend the person that's causing them pain. This person sends their energy into the ground, and they hide. They try to become invisible, like, don't notice me. Just, I'm not here, like, be the wallpaper. Because the attention they were getting from their parents was not loving and supportive. And so they found this way of stuffing everything down. So these people are amazing at just taking it. So if you're a person who can just take a lot of stuff and, you think it's not affecting you, then you're probably a stuffer. And that's something that you need to learn to be in your body, not have it underneath you. And then the next, I'm just kind of going to go over the next 2 really quickly, because this is almost a 400-page book, and to go over everything, I just really encourage you to look at it. And you can look at yourself, and you can see it in other people too, these patterns. The next one is the aggressive one. These people have learned how to pull the energy up and out. So these are the people that you don't mess with, or the people you want in your corner if someone's messing with you. So it can be good or bad, but these are the people that when they were young and they ran into conflict, they would get aggressive and they'd win. They'd take on their parents. take on their older, take on the world, like they learn to fight. And you'll recognize these people, they can walk into a room and you can feel their energy because they're always like projecting it out like as a force field to protect. They're like hyper vigilant to be like, look for danger. They always are kind of in a state of fear, like looking, and they will take care of it. They will win. Do not go toe to toe with one of these people because they've been successful at using this pattern and winning their whole life. That's why you use a pattern, because it worked. It works for them. And then the final pattern is at the age, it's like at the oldest age that's developed, usually around 5 years old. And that is just kind of stuck. The energy doesn't move. And these are the people that follow the rules. These are the people that are successful, usually have successful jobs, go to church, have immaculate lawns, 2 kids that are perfect. They usually marry other people that are like them, they usually don't have much creativity. Like the leaving pattern are very creative people. And that's another clue that you can identify. If you're very creative, if you're able to think outside the box and create things outside the box, you probably are. Einstein is a famous leaver. He thought outside the box. He wasn't the smartest man in the world, but he was creative. And so if you can solve problems creatively, you're probably leaving your body, going, getting the information, and coming back. And people are like, how'd you do that? Like, I don't know. I just did. I do stuff. So there's actually gifts, and that's the one thing I want to leave with you, and is that every person has a pattern, and it colors every part of their life. And they're not always in pattern. Like when they're relaxed and they're just really in their body and they're comfortable, they're just being themselves. When they get some stress, they go in the pattern. And so we don't want to judge other people's patterns as, like making them bad. It's like, that's just what they had to do to survive, and they haven't figured out that doesn't work anymore. None of these patterns do. Following all the rules, like the last pattern, is actually the healthiest. But they're just following the rules. Like, what type of life is that? But if you challenge them, they're going to go to the rules, and they're going to want to, make sure they're following the rules. And that was their way to deal with trauma. And I want us all to, learn to accept each other and give each other compassion. And this book talks about if you see someone in a pattern, how you can help bring them out of it, and help them ground and help them get back. Like, hey, you kind of forgot who you are, come on back, just a gentle reminder that we're all amazing, perfect people, and when we're at our core living authentically, we're just full of, we just all want to love and be safe. We want to be safe around other people. We want to love, we want to give, and so that's what I want to leave you with. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.